Hi, and welcome to this AI in C# video on the Microsoft Agent Framework. Today we're going to do something a bit different in that I'm starting a series within this series about an end-to-end example. This one is part one with just some intro and the chatbot, so there is nothing new as such to learn other than a little more about AGUI. But what I wanted to do is I wanted to make a few parts in a series about how we actually use all these features in an end-to-end example where we end up deploying it using all the different features of Agent Framework as we go along. The scenario is that the comic book guy from Simpsons has required us to make a website. He needs it as cheap as possible, for now at least. All his money is spent on comic books. He wants it 100% in .NET. And he also wants that not only should the chatbot be able to talk to him, but also to his assistant if need be. And our architecture choice for now is that since it should be cheap, we are going to go Blazor WASM, so we don't need a server behind the scenes to run anything big. We're gonna use Web API. I thought about using Azure Functions, which would be even cheaper. But the problem is that cannot use the AGUI protocol, as far as I know. So we're going with a website here that are just running on the free tier up in Azure is the plan. And behind the scenes, we're using Azure OpenAI and some cheap models for now. So this was what I came up with, and the result of that so far is this. We're just gonna explore what it can do, and then we'll look at the code after the fact. But this is a Blazor WebAssembly app, and it only have one feature right now, which is a simple chatbot down here, where we can ask the comic book guy question and get an answer, and we can ask him, do you like Jar Jar Binks? Probably not. But we can also switch to another agent and say hi to that. So this is what we can do. In terms of design, I just asked AI to make this design for me. The prompt to Codex, which is what I'm using, was just that I was given that comic book guy wanted a website, and it should fit his style, and this was what it came up with, which I quite like. Not often I am allowed to use Comic Sans in any of this, but a fairly simple thing here. But behind the scenes, we of course running two projects with some OpenAI in. So what I've done in the repo, if we can go to the repo quickly, let me find it and show it to you. Here we are. So in the repo, I have put in one more, let's go back, one more solution called E2E Comic Book Store Sample, and all the code of that is inside one folder up in the source called E2E Comic Book Store. So there's an app host, backend, front end, and so on, which we'll go into in 1 second. So also what I'm going to do is I'm going to make some branches of the code after each of these parts, so you can go back and look at how it will be, but also will evolve the site with RAG, function calling, and some workflows, if that is what the comic book guy needs to have of features for his website. But for now, we are just in a simple sample here, and we have an app host. And the app host is, of course, just .NET Aspire. And we have a backend and a front end that needs to have reference to the backend. And again, Blazor WASM. So the backend is fairly simple and looks a lot like the ADUI sample that we have seen before, where we just make a normal builder. We add the service defaults so we can run with Aspire. We add OpenAPI, not that we need it so far. And then we get 4 secrets out, one for the endpoint, one for the key, and then the models, which in this case is ChatGPT 4.1 mini, so it's cheap. And then we make a singleton of the Azure OpenAI. As you might have seen in my dependency injection video, this is the way I do it. I don't inject the agents on the backend side, but just the Azure AI client, so we can use it for other things later on. Then we add the add ADUI, so we can have a backend serve a front end for us. And we add some cores because it's Blazor WebAssembly, so we need to have cores to put it in. Then we build 2 agents. The first one being the comic book guy itself. So we just tell him he's the comic book guy from Simpsons, and we should not use markup in the answers because we haven't rendered markup so far. We added as telemetry so we can see it in the Aspire dashboard. And then we also add an assistant, which is the assistant to the comic book guy. We will probably use this to do some warehouse management and such things for the comic books at some point. And then we expose 2 ADUI endpoints, so you can have multiple. In the original video I showed about this, I only just used the root, but you can ask more. And then we add cores. So nothing special in this, it's just serving the API. Before we go into WebAssembly, let's just quickly look at the defaults down here in service defaults. And I haven't really touched this other than told that I have 2 sources, the comic book guy source and the assistant source that we saw up here, these 2, in order for Aspire to show its AI GUI. And then we have the front end. I won't go into too much details about the design itself. There's a bunch of extra CSS that the AI wrote for me, that Codex wrote. And then I have put everything else in home. The rest of it is just out of the box Blazor WASM. And the home page is again some GUI that I made it right. But the only real thing that is here is this thing about should it be the comic book guy or the assistant writing back, and whenever we ask a question. So the AI part is over here. I forgot to show this, by the way. So this is the service, of course. We need to get some URLs. I put those into app settings because this display is a WebAssembly, and it unfortunately can't use the cool Aspire service discovery. So I need to put in some URLs here that fit the service, unfortunately. But we just get the URLs so we can new up the ADUI clients, and we just create the agents. And then we put them in as singletons, keyed singletons, so we can grab these agents along the way. Because yes, normally I would in a server side placed not do make dependency injection on the agents, but because this is served from the server to the client, there's nothing really on the fly we can do anyway. So for that reason, I'm using the keyed singletons here, and that is what we use behind the scenes. We are grabbing the comic book agent and we are grabbing the assistant agents, and down here we will just say, based on the persona that's chosen right now, we want to use that agent. And then we use the streaming, so we get it back nice and smooth. And we just say answer equals update that text. So, and may tell the system that the state has changed. So that is actually everything that needs to happen. Fairly simple setup. My plan was actually also to have deployed this today, but as of this recording, which is a few days after the release of .NET, many of the features up in Azure don't really support .NET 10 yet, so I couldn't put it up into a normal web app at the moment. So that will probably be step 2 once they're ready for doing that. But for now, we can run it here. We can talk with the 2 agents over ADUI, which is cool. So again, next step will be to add some more features. I have various ideas that might come to fruition or not. I definitely want to use the AG UI to perhaps make that the page can switch in theme to be either Star Trek or Star Wars, and then you can ask the agent, so we can use the client part of tools calling. Comic book I will definitely also want to have some kind of knowledge base that you can go in. We should have some collection of his comic books that you can using RAG and similarity search can find the different cool comic books you have. We might want to make that his supplier have an MCP server that we need to do some stock checking and stuff, and also at some point finding some room for some workflows. So again, this is a very early start and nothing new here, but this will be hopefully an involving end-to-end example that adds more and more. And if you have some ideas on what Comic Book Guy would like on his website, then put them down in the comments and we will see. This will be a collective endeavor to give him the best website ever, as he would say. But for now, that was everything for this one, and see you in the next one. And of course, by the way, this is not just this I'm gonna do. I will mix this in with the regular type of videos. This is just when I need to have a little fun with AI as well. I will put in a new part in the series about this end to end. But other technical topics and new things that AI can do will be mixed in with this. So see you in the next one.